Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. Now it's time for the sway bar. And we need the ball bearings, which weren't in this bag. So I think what I need to do is set this aside until I come across the ball bearings. Gonna need a bunch of these. So I'll get all the grub screws, put them over here, and the C-clips. Let me see if the bearings are in some obvious singular location. Yes. I thought I remembered all the bearings being together. Okay. It is probably these two right here. Matching bearings. So what I'm doing here is I'm starting by getting these grub screws with some Loctite on them, and I'm going ahead and putting them in the mounting pieces here that have the ball stud at the end that are into the eyelets. I'm not going to put them all the way in, just get them started so they're there in place when I get to that. Really should have put those in before even doing these, putting the arms on. That would have made it easier to reach them. Okay. So same thing. Well, let's get these in place. Okay, so let's also let's look at our front sway bar size. Okay, this is a 1.1 that it comes with, and the 1.2 is optional. I do have that, but I'm going to start with the lighter sway bar. So I will put the optional one away for later. So now we are basically dropping our sway bar in here and capturing it from either side with a bearing and this little pair of clamps here. Now you want to center your sway bar and then position both of the clasps so they are pointing with the grub screw pointing straight up make sure you've got your sway bar centered. And now we want to make sure that we are nice and snug there, so the sway bar can move, but it can't jiggle or get away from us. And then we want to set these guys up here so that they are also pointing in a direction where we can reach them, like this. And then we want to make sure that they are as close to perpendicular as possible. Like so. And then we want to match the opposite side. Okay, so now when one moves, so does the other, which is exactly what we want from a sway bar. If we try to hold one down and lift the other side, we feel resistance. It's not a lot, but again, this is a very small car and everything needs to be very precise. Okay, so now we have our Ford damping assembly. And we have one eyelet. They're pretty much like they show them in the picture. So now we have two different types of ball studs here. These are, well, those will not fit. So you want the smaller of the pair. And they provide some oil for us. $30,000 CST and $6,000 CST. Now for high grip, we're supposed to use softer oils, and for low grip or asphalt, we use harder oils. So the 30,000 CST is our stock harder oil. It's at the far end of this chart here. So I'm going to be using the recommended 30,000 weight. And many thanks to Sediva and Misakova, who have packed several of the packages here. Kolarova, again, thank you much for doing good jobs packaging everything for my kit. It's greatly appreciated. It's nice that people put their names to their work. The Chinese cars don't do that. They would be embarrassed. So let's see. The easiest way to get these snapped in here is probably going to be to hold them gently and push these on like that. Don't grip it so hard that you risk deforming the threads. There we go. So now we are going to put this stuff is really thick. Gonna fill this little groove. Any extra is gonna just come on out. So that provides a nice damping action. You can really feel that. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe off some of the excess here. You can really feel the difference when you take off a little bit. Don't want to let one of those little ridges here get emptied out. This is one of those things that is going to be a bit of a science in itself, you know, learning to adjust these dampers just so. Okay, and now we can screw these onto the bottom plate here. Gonna need a teeny bit of Loctite on each of these. Okay, that doesn't fit. I'm going to need to use the wider track or the narrow track. So we're going to go do these first. What I need is a pair of soft pliers, rubberized or something. Let's see if these work. This came in the three racing kit. Now they just turn. Well, they are snugged down. The Loctite should do the rest for me. Okay, so Now we have our little damper in there. That's a nice setup. See how that works? Doesn't have to have a lot of movement or cover a long distance because these are going to move independent of each other, and the idea is just to slow things down a little bit so it's not bouncing like it's on a spring. This is something that might want to be done before each, not each, like each heat, but before each race day. Take this off, wipe off the inside, put fresh lube on it, put it back on again, because it also might collect dirt and dust, and dirt could get in there, and that would make it sketchy. So something to think about. Okay, that is taken care of. See, it's interesting that on the large arms, the thicker arms, they give us an access hole. You can see in the directions. On these short arms, they don't give one because they're too thin. So you've got to take it off from here and then put it on. It's kind of a pain, but it works. So this is where our last pieces come in. We have one large spacer, and I'm not sure where it goes. I'll have to... Oh, I know where that goes. That goes on the front if we were using the brace, which we're not using. So I should put that in here with that little front brace. The little 3-hole piece that connects the two arms down here, where if you want to really stiffen the front end, you can lock that to the center post and tie all those joints together, which I am not doing because I want it soft. So let's see. We want... Okay, so this is the outside. And we want that hole right there. So we should go ahead and slide this in. And then we need to make one opposite of that. Okay. And let's see. We need 1mm spacer. Now they give us a whole bunch of spacers here, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, make sure there's none in the bag. So let's start with our 2 grub screws. This is also where our little C-clips are going to come in handy, or they come in essential. Now I'm just going to put these in loosely to start, because I know we're going to want to tighten them down a little more in a minute, but let's just start nice and easy. Well, wait a second. Yeah. I'm going to just tighten them until they touch down, and then back them off half turn to a turn. That way they are in place and ready, but they're not locking into that kingpin. Okay, so these are only 0.5s. I'm going to go ahead and, let's see. Okay. If using less bump steer shimps on the steering plate, the steering linkage is touching the steering block. Okay, so no spacers to start. That's an option, or depending on setup. So, okay, let's start with easiest to drive. It's interesting, they give us easiest to drive, improved steering response, improved overall steering. Why wouldn't you go with improved overall steering? I'm going to go with easiest to drive just for initial setup, and then see how things feel. And that's a good one to like test with, where set your car up with that setting, go to this setting after you've done a handful of laps and kind of gotten a feel for the car, and see what the difference is, see how it feels. And you know, that's one of the things that makes a good driver, is a driver who can tell when something has changed and is it an improvement or not. You know, if a major change like that is done and you can't tell the difference, you're not in tune to the car, you're not driving well enough yet. And you need to go with the easy settings and just practice. So what we need here is, we're going to be, each of these is a 0.5 millimeter. So 2 of them is 1 millimeter, 4 of them is 2 millimeters, etc. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is 4 millimeters. And then a C-clip, that's our top stack, as you can see over here. Okay. In between, we're going to have 1 below and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 above. So 2.5 and 0.5, and then 0.5 below, anchoring the spring. So let's see, what do we have for springs? They give us silver, and that's pretty soft, makes the car easier to drive over bumps and increases steering as it makes the car roll more, especially in the middle of a corner. Harder springs makes the car more responsive and increases initial steering, recommended for high traction and flat tracks. So I am going to go with the stock silver spring for the time being, and considering I'm on asphalt, I might try black to tighten things up a bit, or gold if I want to soften it up a little bit, both of which I have. So this is going to be fun to put all this together. Now, we don't need to stay with this stack setup. We can adjust those and how many there are and where they are to change the way the car handles and change our suspension. This is where a needle nose pliers comes in very helpful. You're dealing with C-clips. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. this is one of the places that getting all this stuff together becomes a little difficult. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we need 5. And 1 and 1. And then we need 5 and 1 and 1. Okay. Getting all these little spacers in place above and below here becomes it's the hard part, especially if you've got large fingers, or if you're arthritic or anything. Even if you're got small fingers, it's still hard to do. Damn. There we go. So there is our suspension action right there. And now what we want to do is tighten this down. Okay, I'm going to get the other one in place first, and then I'll walk you through that next set of steps. So let's get one C-clip in place. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so now to do those set screws. After assembling the steering block, do the following. Okay, loosen the set screw slightly, that's done. Use your thumb to press down on the top of the kingpin while using your other fingers to pull up the steering block. Tighten the set screw. So basically we want to make sure that the steering block here is the space here and here is as close as it can be. So kind of like that. That way this can move up like this, but the kingpin can't slide back down like that. Okay, good. So there is our extremely complex front suspension, but I like it. Okay, let's read some information here. Okay, tips. We use different ride heights at indoor and outdoor tracks. Indoor, ride height as low as the rules allow, usually 4 millimeters. Outdoor, always run at least 5 millimeters of ride height. Okay, ride height should always be 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters higher than the front. So the rear ride height, excuse me, should be 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters higher. I recommend changing droop using the upper shims on the kingpin. Note that this also changes the ride height by the same amount. Adding plus 0.5 shim means a 0.5 millimeter less droop because the spring gets more preload results, which results in a higher ride height. In that case, you should add the same amount, 0.5, under the lower wishbone. So in other words, if you take out spacers from up here, you should move those spacers below the spring. Not necessarily under the spring, under the lower wishbone. In other words, if you take springs out of here, you would place them down under the spring. You might put them here. I'm not sure if they'll fit under there. I have to tinker with that. But I'm going to leave this part here set up for now unless I need to make a ride height change. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.